I just love that little voice. Today is going to be just the most amazing, special journey, continuing our understanding of self-care, and also the journey that all of us have been on this year about the meaning of myself and what it is, what it isn't, and truly what it can be for each of us. And so that by the end of the year, it's not only myself, but it comes back with a much more full meaning of myself, truly, fully, and perhaps for the first time ever. Now, Michelle is founder of an amazing organization called Unbridled Change. She is a healer, a mystic, an animal communicator. She is a horse whisperer, a horse healer, a major, major people healer. And when you hear her own amazing healing story, I think that you will understand how her journey could have led nowhere but the way it did and why it brought her here. She can speak to you of the stars and of God and soul and spirit, your divine nature, how and why you got here, how and why you put yourself in the situations you did, but most especially the good news of how and why you can help sort it all out. And she and her four-leggeds are the ones who can help you get there. So, Michelle, let's start with your story, and then we'll get into the wonderful conversation. And then at the end of the day, too, she is going to actually, you know how, guys, we've been talking about being on a journey of finding the yeses. Why am I calling you Marie? You must have a Marie in your history because this has never happened to today. But Michelle is actually going to take us on a first step on a way to find yeses and a first step into your wholeness. So go ahead, Michelle, let us hear about your very own healing journey.
Well, thank you, thank you. And don't worry about the name. People always have trouble with my names because I don't really attach to names, and you're going to figure that out here in a second as to why I have that. It's no big deal. It's quite common actually for me with my name. So before we dive into a little bit of my story and hopefully having you be able to walk through your own journey through my story, what I'd love to do is just take a moment, if we can, Dr. Tricia, and just drop into that heart space to open up that beautiful field of grace. So just take that deep breath in and out. We're all coming from different points, whether you're here now live, hello, or you are coming back into the replay to listen back to that. Just taking a moment and really inviting your full presence to come into this now. This is part of self-care and self-gift. Allowing yourself to be present in the moment that you're at, inviting all those to-do manager, taskmaster pieces of you to let go of the to-do list. It'll be there, trust me, when we get done in about an hour or so. Deep breath in and out again. Just imagine that there's that beautiful Reiki energy coming around you, helping to create that field of grace, helping to hold you, to bring you the healing vibes that are optimal just for you. inside this beautiful container of the Epiphany series. And that healing strands of grace are there to help hold you, to be with you, to cleanse, clear, and transmute any and all energies that come up throughout the day and throughout our talk, and really help infuse you with that essence that is your soul's light. Inviting that wise one self of you to be present, inviting that inner healer within you to come forward. Just take a moment and give yourself the gift of your essence, of your light. Beautiful. Just take a moment and come back, kind of wiggle your hands and your feet. And I would love to take you into a journey of how I've kind of come to where I'm at and how it is that I share and work with you and helping you come into your journey. So like Dr. Tricia said, it definitely involves animals. They are my main teachers. They were, when I wasn't willing to interact with the human world at all, were the bridge that kept me in this little place that I like to call Earth School, and to keep going. And then eventually the bridge that helped me start to be able to work with other people so that they could find their wise one self, that essence that we just checked into. So I guess, the other thing that I like to do is, because my story, if you haven't heard it, is a little bit different, but the essence of it is I would love for you to think of yourself and track yourself with my story, because there are points in it that you're going to find are definitely yours. They might not have the physical component that my story has, but my story holds within it an essence for you to walk through all those pieces of really kind of why it's hard to say yes to ourselves, why it's hard to even find ourselves, like in the ocean of all that happens to us throughout our life, and in that loverly role that I can already feel being present really is that those caretakers and those jobs and essences that we bring to ourselves in that feminine role. So when I was 13, I got really, really, really sick. I was bit by a mosquito that had encephalitis, equine eastern encephalitis. And so it made me really, really sick. So I had been riding horses. I started riding horses when I was 6. My mom put me in riding lessons because I had really bad ADHD and dyslexia. And so I was like this kid that was out of control and nobody could really talk to. It was because I was actually in a whole lot of places talking to a whole lot of different things. And but at that time, my family just, didn't understand that and know what that was. So I was at the barn, and the barn had a breakout of equine encephalitis, and the mosquito bit me, and I ended up very, very sick. So I ended up dropping into a coma for 7 days. And while I was in that coma, a couple things happened to me. My body couldn't deal with the shock and the trauma that was happening to it. It was too much inflammation, and also dominoed into spinal meningitis at the same time. So when I woke up from that coma after 7 days, I was deaf, I was blind, but not kind of blind that you would think of darkness. Everything was crazy, crazy white. So everything was blinding to me. If you can imagine, if you ever guys go out skiing, and then you come inside, it's really hard to see because everything's actually really white from that reflectiveness of that, the reflection of where you had been and getting all that light in. That's what my world looked like. I was also paralyzed from the middle of my back down, so I couldn't move. And then the other thing that happened was the damage of my brain made it so that I had no access to any of my memories. So I was complete blank slate. I have no memories at all from when I woke up. So all that I knew was that this thing was stuck in something that I didn't even know I had a body. I didn't know what a human was. I didn't know what anything was. I just was in this place, and I was in an immense amount of pain. I was in an immense amount of terror and overwhelm, and I had zero control over what was happening to me, although I didn't really know at the time what a me was. Fast forward a little bit. So I would love for you guys all to think about places where you have felt cut off from like being able to express yourself, being able to say to somebody, you know, this is what I need, this is what I've been up to, this is what and where people, maybe it feels like falls on deaf ears, or somebody can't hear you, you don't know how to express yourself. That was my world, minus the idea of like what humans were. I had none of that, all that formatting that puts us into who we are and what we are and what a human is and what an animal is and what a tree is. All that was gone. So while I was in the hospital and I started to kind of get some information as far as the energy that was coming in wavelengths from that emotional body started to feed into me. So I knew my body was out of control and disorganized and all over the place and hurting like heck. I started to realize that there was some rhyme and reason to the people that would come in and out. And if I would just do what they wanted me to do and not fight back, everything got better, right? Everything just, they would do what they wanted to do and move me, put me down. And so that was the doctors and the nurses pulling blood, putting me in and out of tests, you know, all of that stuff. I still had no point of reference for it. I didn't understand it, but I just knew if I just went limp and went away, that it would go faster. But there were three beings that I couldn't figure out. And I started learning how to track these three energies from very far away, because I never could figure out what they wanted. And all I could feel from them was over and over that I wasn't giving them what they want. The three beings happened to be my father, my mother, and my sister. So when they would visit me, their desires, their needs, their wants, what they wanted me to show up as, what they needed me to show up as, their fears, their worries, their overwhelms would get funneled into me and overwhelm my system even more, because I couldn't figure out how to make it go away, right? I couldn't figure out how to make it stop and like just do what they wanted me to do, because I didn't understand it. I didn't have any bandwidth for it. So fast forward a little bit, this is where the animals come in. I started to get really good. Like I could track like all the floors of the hospital. I could track all the different things energy wise, and humans were actually looked the densest to me. They looked like shadows. The inanimate objects actually had more energy flow into it. So my eyesight became very adapt to energy world. So I see energy, you know, kind of like Donna Eden sees everything. That's how I see first. And then I started to be able to hear everything, because I couldn't hear physically, everything wasn't happening. So then I started, the senses of the hearing world started to come in, right? The sense of smell and taste, those clairs became very predominant in me, how energy actually tastes, what it smells like. Those senses became stronger than my memory senses, because they run on a different neural pathway than memory does. And when they finally brought me home, I was refusing to do all the PT, all the OT. I just was like a little, like, I was like a weeble wobble. If you pushed on me, I just fell over. I had no catch. So I couldn't, you know, if I was sitting up straight and nothing got me to move, I would just stay there. But if you pushed on me, I didn't have the ability, because of where my back was paralyzed, I'd fall over. So while I was refusing to do everything, they took me out to the barn. And it was because it was like a Hail Mary. Like, I don't know how my mom figured out that equine therapy was a real thing, because this was in 1990, before it was really even here. But she did, and she was like, okay, the only thing that Michelle loved to do, she did it like every day of the week before, was to go to the barn. So let's take her back to the barn. Let's just throw the Hail Mary out there and see if this will get her to engage with the world, because I wouldn't do it. I had zero reason to, because the world didn't make any sense to me. When they pulled up into, and this is the really quick version, you can get the longer version of this in my book, The Horse Cure, but when they pulled up into that barn, my smell sense started to give me information. I finally felt something that was familiar, and it was the smell. If any of you guys are horse people, you know, the barn has a smell that nothing else has. All the kids go, oh yeah, because it stinks, but it has the hay and it has the horses and the earth smell, and it's just a completely different thing. And so at this point, my eyes, it was about 6 months after I came home. I stayed in the hospital for a total of 3 months because my functioning was so out of balance that my heart couldn't keep up with everything, and it was all wacky. But they put me in the wheelchair, and I was like trying not to act like I cared about anything. So I had these really thick glasses on, to keep the sun out as much. I had my hat down over my head, and I was like trying, like I actually wanted to see something. And I didn't know why I wanted to see something because I didn't care about any of the world around me up until this point. When they brought me around the corner, it was the good old hunter jumper barn. So think of like the center aisle with the doors where the horses can put their heads out over top of it, the stalls, and they could come out. And it was shadowy. If you've ever been in a barn, it's not super lit up. So I could actually see better because there wasn't all the light interfering with what was happening. And about 4 stalls down on the left, a horse came out, and he looked like a yellow highlighter. He was just, the energy that was coming off of him was amazing. It was sparkling, it was gold, it was like all over the place. He just was a beautiful yellow highlighter to me energetically. I'd never seen anything like that post coma, because remember, I'm only basically 6 months old at this point. And for the first time, I was willing to roll that. They'd been trying to get me to roll my wheelchair on my own, and I just wouldn't do it. Like they could make my hand, they could pick it up and put it on it and make me move it, but I wasn't willing to do it on my own. And I picked up my hands, I put them on the wheelchair, and I went straight to that stall. And my wheelchair slammed into the stall, and it should have scared the crap out of this big, huge 17-hand jumper whose name was Schedule A. It's gonna make me cry. But it didn't scare him at all. Instead, he put his head up and over the back of that, his muzzle and his jaw came against my back and pulled me even closer into that stall. And for a moment, I finally said yes to something touching me. I finally said yes to another body willingly asking for me to engage with them. And I finally said yes to like finding a piece of me was in that moment. And I don't know how long we stood there. It felt like there was no time, but I also said the very first word that came out of my mouth post-coma. And it was this guttural, weird word because I had yet to talk. They didn't know whether I could talk or not. And it was his name. It was Sketchy. And I shouldn't have remembered that because I had no memory. But I remember that horse, and I remembered the energy of him. And his body started to help me start to regulate because he was willing to accept me just for what he didn't want anything from me. He didn't put any fears on me. He didn't put anything on me except for, I see you. Hello. I'm here for you. And that was the start of my journey into, now my parents were pretty savvy. They were like, oh, snap, we're going to use this. And the way they got me back up and riding again is so not safe. 100% do not ever do it. They basically tied me to a horse. And I 100% do not ever do that. It's so not okay. But it was.
Michelle, I'm sorry to break in, but some people are telling me they're hearing a rattling in your sound and everyone's muted. Is there something you can adjust on your end?
You are asking a technological question.
I didn't notice it before everybody got on, so I don't know. Maybe turn your volume down just a little bit.
I can try that. How's that, everybody? Thumbs up. Is that rattling sound gone? Who was?
No, still there.
Still there.
Well, we're just gonna have, can you turn it down a little more?
Maybe the necklace.
I don't know. It might be.
Here, might be the ear pod. Okay.
Say something.
How about now? Is that better?
It's better.
Okay.
Better.
I have a tendency to blow out electronics with my vibe. So if
It's still there, but there's nothing we can do about it. So, it's just the way it is. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
No worries. Let me try just totally getting rid of electronics and using the, if I lose you, I will come back, I promise.
Okay.
That's what happens when I turn this off. Okay.
You have to say something. There you go.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, that's much better. Much better.
Okay. I'm going to back away from my computer.
There.
Put a harmonizing shield on it.
That's better. No rattling now.
Okay. All right. So what happened over the next 2 years is by writing and working with Schedule A, he brought the movement of the horse, the literal movement, brought back the use of my legs, brought back the use of it. Literally was healing. That repetitive movement brought back, it's like shined a flashlight on my nervous system and said, hey, there's a problem here. Something's not syncing up. And so that came back on. It took about 2 years for my hearing to come back as well. And so they started to teach me how to sign. So every once in a while I'll break into sign language, and I apologize for that, but it is what it is. And the hearing took a little bit of a longer journey. I was partially deaf for a very long time, and then eventually it's come back in. And the sight took about 2 years as well to come back in. So here's the part, though, that I really want to kind of highlight is while I was learning how to re-enter into human world, because I didn't understand it, humans would, their higher self, their wise one self would talk to me, and I thought I was talking to them for 2 years. I had no idea that I wasn't audibly talking to people because they would talk and I would listen and I would talk back, and I was like, oh, I just thought that was normal. It wasn't until later in life, and I hid it for the longest time of how I did all that, because once I realized that wasn't normal, I didn't want to be seen as not normal, because I was already the chick that disappeared for 6 months and, at 13. And then I was already the chick that was in a wheelchair for a while. And then I was already the chick that, everything that, I just didn't want to add to it. Oh, by the way, I can hear your wise oneself talking, and I can talk to the trees and animals and everything else like that. That didn't feel like a cool idea to me at the time. So what the horses did teach me, though, that I really want to highlight, because it also put me on a journey of what we're talking about today, is I realized this very same thing, that the way we talk within ourselves and the way we audibly talk outside and how we interact with ourselves and with others were a lot like what my mom, my dad, and my sister were doing. They were bringing to me, rightfully so, because they were scared, they were overwhelmed, they were nervous, they didn't know what was going to happen to their daughter, they didn't know if I was even going to wake up, and if I did wake up, was I going to be a vegetable or not? And so all their shadow needs, wants, and fears and desires were getting shoved into my field. And what the horses taught me was a very interesting coping skill. They taught me that we humans don't actually pay attention to what's happening on the inside of us. And we bring a lot of needs forward. And we don't ever slow down, for the most part, to check in to see if that need matches what the other person that they're doing. So the horses taught me to just be a chameleon, do what people need, the best that the fastest that they could do it. Don't fight back. Don't ask questions. Figure it out. Get them in and out of your world as fast as possible, and then they put you back in the stall or a field, and then you get to do whatever you want. Now, I'm not saying this is for every horse owner, but this was what I learned in this big, huge show barn working with these horses, right? And so that became my motto of what I did at school. I was now going into high school. I had to survive, like think of a little baby going into high school. That doesn't work, but basically that was my experience, right? So now I'm going into high school with all this stuff, and I figure out if I just give people what they want as fast as they want and figure it out and don't have any needs, then I can retreat back to myself. So the horses became that retreat for me. They were the exact opposite. So I would much rather sit in the pasture with them all the time. But if I did ride them, it was 100%, I never wanted to be outside of consent. If I did something from taking away their ability to say yes, no, or maybe, then I was breaking my bond with them. Why? Because I could feel it and I could see it when they were working with other people. Again, very well-meaning, beautiful, amazing people, but just not conscious of that, right? Just not conscious of what that is. And then I figured out, well, heck, it's not just with that, that's with me. And so if I try to get people to like show up and see me, it's not going to work. It's going to be a disaster. So I became the biggest chameleon, shapeshifter, you name it. There was no Michelle. There was no me. It didn't exist. It wasn't safe for her to exist. And that's the way I functioned. As you can imagine, that didn't work out very well at all. So fast forward to I was, how old was I? I was 23 years old. I was starting my master's program in social work. I had already started to work with therapeutic writing because that was, again, my big, huge thing. And I was willing to talk to the physical body, but I had no idea about this whole mental body, emotional body, spiritual body thing. I was just like, in fact, the spiritual body was the farthest away of what I wanted to talk to. If you brought in anything about God, the divine source, Father Sky, Mother Earth, I don't care how you put it, I was like, no go. You don't even bring that stuff to my doorstep. I didn't want to have anything to do with it because my parents went very much into their faith, that it was the divine God and their word that was what brought me through what nobody else had survived. I've only met one other person, so there's two of us that I've met now who have had encephalitis as a child and spinal meningitis combined together. And he also had some skill loss and some other stuff like that happened to him as well. But most people don't survive it because it's really hard to survive your brain swelling and the lining of your brain swelling this way. And it just doesn't work. So they attributed that to the divine. Now I can too, but don't ask me to say that in my early 20s. So I was in a relationship. I was in my first marriage. It was the college, I was doing what people do. They marry their college boyfriend. They do this, they do that. I was a complete hot mess of a person. There was no me in there. There was nothing. He was also completely traumatized and abused as a child with, addict parents and all this other stuff. So two hurt people together, that saying, hurt people. Yeah, we were not good. We were like, it was a bad, toxic, codependent relationship. And there was a point where I was just like, I'm done. I don't see any point of this world. I don't see any point of all this pain. I don't have any desire to be here anymore. He was passed out drunk on the bed. I took a handful of pills and was like, peace out, world. I'm not going to do this anymore. I know the energy world, that's where I want to be. Well, luckily, this is where another animal comes in who has helped me heal. Baron, my German Shepherd, he's passed away now, but he's amazing. He licked in my mouth once I passed out and triggered a vomiting response. So I ended up throwing up, and there I was. I woke up, I was in like a pool of my puke. It was all in my hair. I mean, it was not good. And Baron showed me, he talked to me and he said, why do you not see what I see? And I was just like, I don't get it. What's here to see, Baron? And he showed me a vision. He showed me what my soul looked like. And he showed me that essence of me. And he was like, that is who you truly be. Will you love her and find her the way that I know she can be? And man, it sobered me up like that. I got up, I took a shower, I packed my bags. I was like, fuck this, no way, excuse my language. I gotta find this back again. Packed up my bag, went to my friend's house, filed a restraining order, kicked him out of the house, went back to my master's program, and that sent me on. From there, I had lost her. I had known her when I first woke up from that coma. That's the only piece that I knew. And that's what I saw in everybody that I talked to. But I let the white noise of all of the other stuff separate me from what I knew truth was. And Baron helped remind me of that. So for the next 20 years, because I am 44, I went on a journey of finding that peace within me, lighting her up, and then helping other people light up that amazing soul self within them too. Because like, that's what I want to be. I want to be a Schedule A, and I want to be a Baron for everybody that I meet, so that they can find that light within themselves and step into it. Like I said, it's a journey of what that 20 years brought me into. Shamanism was the first door, because remember, I couldn't talk to the divine. I was like, nope, I can talk to animal spirits. That's good. So dove really into shamanism, and then worked my way back to being able to claim all aspects of self, including that beautiful soul self and who that is. So that's what I do. But what I found is that it is in that way that we all have done in a version what I did, what the horses taught me to do, which is to show up for people the way they want, so we don't end up in a confrontation, so we can just get it done as fast as possible, and they'll give us praise and attaboys and cookies and all that good stuff, and then we can just go back and be ourselves outside of that. Well, when we do that, we end up in this massive separation, and we don't bring ourselves into that equation, right, Dr. Trisha, like what you're talking about, the me, my self-care. So we've got to bring ourselves back in there somehow, some way. And for so many people, it's starting to dissolve all the stuff that is in the way. Like what Baron showed me, look inside, see that beauty. When he showed me that, I was like, that's not me. And then I remember, animals don't lie. If he sees that, that's real, that exists. So I held on to his belief in me until I could finally start to see her and like be like, oh snap, there she is. That's real. But I didn't really believe him at first, but I knew it had to be real because he showed it to me. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And the whole chameleon thing, right there with you my entire life, and like we were talking earlier, this whole journey of self-care, oh my God, it's nothing like I thought it was going to be, and I got the image this weekend. And for y'all, that don't know, and some who were on the call last week, my world's been turned upside down. And so I'm on this journey of self-care, which I thought was just going to be more, taking better care of myself, making some better choices for myself, not a whole inward outward flip. And so one of the images I got is, how kittens play with a ball of yarn and they unroll it. And I kept telling Jolinda, I feel like I'm unraveling, not as in cray unraveling, but the ball is unraveling and it's going to get to the point of origin. And I'm like, well, what's there? And will I recognize it? Because what you just said, my parents, the only person who ever saw my essence growing up was my grandfather. My family never saw it, never recognized it, because I had to be who they wanted. Good Southern girl, you be everything anybody wants and needs, and you mean it, and you are it. So who is at that point of origin? I had no idea, but I was told I will recognize and remember because it's safe now, but it wasn't safe before. And all these other, chameleons are pieces, and that they're real, but that's all that were able to be accepted, like you said. But it's still unraveling, and I'm going, and I'm having to look to the animals, like you say, because they're all I've ever been able to trust and know, but I'm like, well, who is it? What is it? Because I have questions and questions and baby questions and many baby questions. And I'm like, but out of all the answers, they're just even more questions. So this is nothing like anything I've ever known about self-care, Michelle. And I'm like, oh my God, where do we go? How do we help anybody on their journey of self-care? Because it doesn't look anything like I thought it might look, in January whatsoever. So
Yeah. So where do you go? Like, once you realize that self-care isn't just, drinking your water and getting your nails done, or, putting hair product. I was like, oh my gosh, my hair actually is curly and not frizzy today. I was like, it's so real. This is so not normal. But it was like a moment where there's that version of self-care, right? Like I was like, I finally found the perfect products of how to put them together. But then there is the self-care, which really moves the needle, right? The self-care that has you able to say yes to yourself, to put yourself in that equation, because all those chameleon pieces, those are real parts of you. Like what you were saying, Dr. Tricia, like how you showed up as a caretaker or a leader, or these different aspects of us that we show up as. There's an essence of us in those, but are they there because they're exchanging a survival need, or are they there because they're able to just be in their light and to share that essence, that charism within us? And that's the part of like unwinding, of getting to that point of origin, so that you can see where these parts of you that are probably pretty awesome are also really burdened, really bogged down. So like for a lot of people, that caretaker role, right? We figure out really little on that if we meet the needs of others and we make them feel good, then our world gets overall better, right? And so then that spins off a people pleaser, and then that spins off this superhero Wonder Woman. I can do everything, I can have 6 million plates all spinning at the same time, and it's all going to be good. And one crashes, and then you have a saboteur energy who like comes in there and berates you and blames you and shames you in order to like leverage you into being a better people pleaser, a better Wonder Woman, a better, and it's this scaffolding that we start to build that all cuts us off like an ocean. I love the image of an ocean. And there you are, your authentic true self is like an island, this beautiful island. It's got light beaming out of it, right? But there's this massive ocean in between that's full of all of the roles that we play, all the ones that sometimes we play them because we needed to. They were absolutely necessary when we had to do them. They helped us survive whatever situation. So for me, I had no ability to understand how to show up as a core self because I didn't know what that was. I had no idea. I was that true blank slate. So trying to show up as me in the middle of, ninth grade, what the heck is that? Ninth graders don't know who they are to begin with, let alone, and so it just kept going. And I find that we all do some version of this. There's not, but I think my story of what I'm hoping it does for you is it helps you see where you have your version of this, of how you've showed up to survive and how you learned and what you were willing to exchange for survival, right? For acceptance, because we're tribal-based community, right? We don't live in a little island by ourselves. We are actually a massive community of connection, of all as one. And the animals sometimes are the best way to wake us up to self-care because we're more willing to help them than we are ourselves. But just like the difference of, I didn't want to become to the animals what my parents were unknowingly doing to me, which is putting all of their stuff on me. And if I got better and I healed, then that would make it better for them. We don't want to walk into that slippery slope because it can get a little bit funky, right? Because then my healing and my feelings of connected to myself is dependent on somebody else picking that up and doing it for me. That's never a good idea. It doesn't feel good to the other being, and it really doesn't feel good to ourselves. We actually end up with resentment because we realize that the power is not coming from within us. And so all that disease starts into our body. through those different parts. So self-care to me is really that idea of stepping into, I'm going to take ownership for taking responsibility for finding my essence. And I'm going to be very grateful and bow down to the messengers of those externally for me that help me see that. And usually it's through a charge. Usually it's through like a beautiful message of like, hey, you know, like in addition to drinking your water, how about you take a moment and take a breath and check into your body, do a body scan. How about you set the boundary that says no to that person that you wanted to just to say yes to because you don't want them to get irritated with you or upset. You don't want to manage that energy field coming back to you. How about you put yourself on the front burner that says, I only have so much energy bucks in a day. Where am I going to spend that energy dollars? And if I have some in the bank, sure, I can give and be supportive to another. But if I don't have it and I consistently go into the red, what am I doing? How then can I show up for other people and be of joyful service? Because ultimately that's what I believe we're all up to, right? On some form or fashion is helping support each other. We're all, who says it, Ram Dass, walking each other home, right?
I want to, oh,
yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah, you got to just jump in there.
Well, I want to come back in a minute because I want to address the animals just briefly what you said, but then I do want to come back to the self-care and to, you know, how do we get to the right kind of questions to be able to ask ourselves too, like we were talking about earlier. But a lesson, you know, I hugely learned over the weekend about that I think for those of us with our animals, and it is so important, but, you know, while we were caring for Rick's mother, and those who know me, you know my favorite place in the whole world, right here in my head, it is just magical. And so I live there, and I'm always pretty conscious of everything going on inside. And so we were doing all of her care, and I was taking care of the animals and things. And after everything was over with, then, you know, I found out that one of my precious heart cats, Sage, just wasn't right. And I talked to him, and he said he wanted to go to the vet, and he was in total kidney failure. And, you know, for a split second, you know, I did the thing we do, and like, oh my God, if I just paid attention, but I let it go because I also knew that he was holding on to it to allow us to care for her, and that it was also part of his fur agreements. So, but what it showed me, and while I was at the vet waiting on his test to be run, 3 words came into me, and they were focused, balanced, awareness. And I was like, oh, okay. And as we got into it, and Jolinda kind of worked with me on it, and it was like I was kind of given the message that, you know, just like you're always knowing what's going on the inside, also it's time for you to pay attention, more attention to your external too, you know, and not as a chastisement, but I understood that had I been able to be more aware of my surroundings, I might have realized, even because I saw him just hanging out, but I might have been more aware or been able to check in, you know. And so I was able to get that, and I saw a triangle form in my mind, and I realized that, yeah, I've been hearing about balance for a while, and being a top AAA, you know, I just do everything at supersonic speed, and type B doesn't really work for me, though I've really tried. And so I made a promise to the animals, and it wasn't like, oh, I'll never let anything happen to you again, you know, because again, that's just as crazy. But I was able to promise them that, you know, to the best of my abilities, guys, I will really commit to seeing as best I can and paying as much attention to the outside as I do the inside, and really working on balance, because it's just so easy for me to go inside and get lost, because there's just so much fun in there. And so with Sage, this whole journey of his was about pushing me around that. And also because, my big thing is, because of who I am and my heart and my love for them, I just pack them up and keep them in my arms 24 hours a day, just making sure that every last moment of their life was nothing but love, and not out of fear or desperation or anything like that, but just to imbue them with as much love as I could give them for their journey. And he just kicked my ass, and wrote me the most beautiful letter, which he channeled to me from my bedroom, because he was determined you're gonna listen one way or another. And again, doesn't matter how much even when you write the book, your journey is still your journey. But I want to share this with y'all because he and all the animals want the moms to truly hear this. So I'm just going to read you a couple of things that he said. He said that, let's see, I understand that it is not out of desperation or loneliness or fear that your love is truly so deep and so wide and unending that you would selflessly spend every last moment with me held to your heart, just so that I would know only love. But you see, Mom, and my heart's desire is that you get this, and it is truly from all of us forever. While yours are truly the last eyes we would ever want to look into, the last heart's love to feel, it is you who are with me or us in that final moment. So if it is the angels that I only ever know or have, meaning in that moment, I only know love because of you. I love you and we love you. And what he was trying to say was, if you're not there in that final moment, or if you are, that's not what's important to us, because you've spent your whole life giving us that love and pouring it into us. So we're not alone, even if in your eyes we seem alone. And his journey, while he wanted to be home and not receive any medical support, he absolutely, refused to let me have anything but little love check-ins. He was on my bed, and then he came and got one of the little beds in their den, and then in here. And I even had gotten a message from him last night while I went and sat out in the grass talking to God and shedding a few tears. I wasn't even allowed but a few tears because the messages were so great. And I came back in and I was doing some writing, and I know Sage was channeling it to me, because some other insights were coming in about my journey. And even the wording was like, I am pretty sure that Sage is not going to be willing to leave unless or until he's either certain or almost certain that I have got the message, or I'm so close to clarity that the rest of them can carry me through. And that was right at 9:30. And I'd already, when I came in, I checked on him, and he was still, just being himself. And then I closed his book and I got up to check on him, and he was gone, and now I'm getting a little teary eyed, but, I knew that he thought I was, pretty close to getting it. And so that's when it hit me after, all these 40 years of being with them, that is really how they feel about us. And, Monique really was the one who opened my eyes about the idea of accompanying them. I call it the final goodbye, but when it's their time, they really are inviting us to go with them on their final journey. And it's all about them. It is nothing about us. Our time, and we have our moments, but it really is their journey and their time, and we're there to do as they ask, and they feel everything we feel. And so, like Michelle was saying, if we're putting our stuff and our heartbreak, they're feeling it, and it makes their journey so much more difficult. And they're not mad at us, they don't hate us, they understand, but it breaks their heart for us because they love us so much, and they just want us to know the joy that they feel of returning home, and that they're not really leaving us. And Sage was, helping unfold me and bring me back to my origins of who I couldn't even remember. He was lifting the veil of who I've always been for eons. And he helped me begin to truly see what all of this really means, that, it wasn't even safe to see my whole life. So I just want to really share with y'all that, y'all, our animals are closer to God than we'll ever be able to be, because we can't get past so much of the time. And they have no veils. They have nothing to separate them the way we can let get in the way. And so allow them as much as you can to show you the way, because they've got everything to give us and teach us about, just like what Michelle is saying. And if we can get past what we think and what we think they're feeling, which is not really the truth, I mean, I was even shown that, for example, our whole thing about, and which was certainly me too, like, well, I don't want them to die alone. But you see, they don't die alone. I mean, that's what we think, and that's how we feel. They're never alone. The angels are always with them. Their brothers and sisters are always with them. He certainly wasn't alone, but that was my thing as his mama. And because it would have comforted me, to hold him in my arms, but that wasn't his path. And I was truly trying to honor his path, and pretty much I did it. And so, yes, I've got some of my little human tears. Truly, my heart is just so full of being able to receive these new messages from him and from God about what the animals want us to know about the journey and the other side. And they want y'all to know these things. So this is what all of them can give us in all these ways for our own journeys. And so that's the heart of what Michelle's saying too, I think. And it's powerful.
I would like to expand on that a little bit because I can hear all of my team chatting with me behind the scenes and picking up, and I'm sure Sage is in there too. Yes, Sage is in there too. Yeah, is to really help this concept and as animals, as messengers, as your guys, Anna Marie loves to say, and animals as teachers is my saying. Is one of the things of that. You're not alone. So the biggest catch of this is that though we feel very alone, we feel very isolated, we feel very cut off from everything around us, because in essence, who we're cut off from is ourselves. We're cut off from that core part, that part that Baron showed me, right? That Sage was channeling and trying to get you to re-engage to focus and pay attention. In that what I call the sacred triangle. So like your own holy triangle is you in this incarnation, your soul, and source or divine, universe, whatever, insert one that you're okay with right now. And that's the Holy Trinity, right? When you have that ability to connect into you in this incarnation, how are you expressing yourself? What essence of you are you bringing through? How do you want to show up and share that? And then connect into that amazing wise oneself, that soul energy and all of its amazing legacy, blueprints, goals, lights, essences, its lessons, its jewels that it has with you to help you. And then you bring that and you walk that into that you are source, I am. We are a frequency within source, right? We are never alone. That is our Trinity that sits in our heart. And because we're connected to everything, like what Sage, I think, was trying to bring forward to you, was that you don't have to feel that number one feeling, which is the number one feel that we're all trying to get over, is that original separation fear. That original feeling of abandonment, of being lost, of being cut off, of being like left in. I mean, I know what that feels like from a very visceral sense, because I legit dropped into a 13-year-old brain who had no idea I was a human, but yet cognitively I could track everything. So like a little baby is still very much more connected to the spirit realm, right? They're still very much in there, so they don't feel as much of that. They have synced, their body energy has synced to the mom. They've started to get an essence of like what they're coming into and what they're doing, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. Their body rhythms are starting to be like, okay, I'm leaving this all as one, everything is glory. And I'm getting ready to drop in to what's the lay of the land, what's the coordinates. Your body is syncing to that the whole time you're sitting in utero. FYI, I can totally geek out on interpersonal biology, and I will try to restrain myself. But we want to do that, right? Because it's how we're telling ourselves to survive. Well, the problem is that that's everybody else's vibe. From the time we're in utero to when we're learning how to stand in the line and not move and not make, like only raise your hand when your body needs to go to the bathroom and move. When we're all taught systematically, why? Because we need organization, but we're taught to get further and further and further away from this self. The self that has the answers, who knows what it needs, who is 100% connected all the time. We get further and further away from her or him, right? And the further and further away we get, the harder it is to focus, the harder it is to be aware, and the harder it is to bring balance. And we're just trying like the towel, like the Dickens, to get the balance back in of these 10,000 things, right? And we can't do any of it. Why? Because we don't even know the question, circling back around to what you said before, of how to start to allow that to come forward. We don't know how to even start to engage with the self, because it's so covered up, so layered, so detached, so brought into what is acceptable, that the very first question of what do you want? makes you go, I don't know. I know that I ask this question to my clients all the time, usually in their second or third session. I was like, what do you want to create? You're a masterful being of creation. What do you want to create? And they look at me like I have 6 heads. And why do they look at me like I have 6 heads? Because in essence, I should. Because that is such a foreign concept of what do we as masterful beings of creation want to create? What do I want to co-create with this parts of myself? What do I want to co-create with you and with other people? What do I actually want to bring forward in that? This is self-care. For me, it all comes back to what I think maybe you were channeling over the weekend when you have that shifting, right? When we shift from one form to another, in that moment, the veils are thinner, right? We can see and hear and sense and be more connected. And what we often get, the messages that we get from our loved ones, whether it be fur babies or human babies or, whatever that form that being comes in, usually is something along the lines that says, hey, how's your soul doing in there? Do you remember what light it is you came here to do? Are you ready to put that back in to your life? Are you ready to remember that you are all that is one, and one is all within you? And are you ready to remember that you are a divine, powerful, amazing being of light, and that's in there? And that's the questions to start with. It starts to say, what do I even want to start to create? It's not what do I need to fix? There's always something to fix. But if we start to ask the question, what do I want to create? What do I want either through my fur baby, how do I want my animal to feel? In essence, if you help them feel that way, who else are you helping at the same time? Right? Because you can't do one. You can't do anything for anybody that you don't have within yourself. It's not possible. You can't do it. They're going to know that your energy is not matching, that it's not synchronicity, that you can't do it. You can't hold the space for somebody if you don't hold it within yourself. So if we want to offer love and we want to offer unconditional love and light and allowing true consent to be there for our fur animals or birds or fishies or plants, you name it. I see a beautiful tree behind one of the people, right? That's on the thing. And so I love that tree. It's so pretty. If we want to be there, your kitties that have got in and out, if we want to be there for that, we have to show up for ourselves with that first. And so the very first question where I give everybody to start with is, do you allow yourself the ability to say yes, no, or maybe to yourself? Or do you bully yourself into saying yes because you think that's what people around you need? And I put that in quotes. That's what they expect. This is just what we do. We're good Southern girls, right? We've got to overcome a massive amount of cultural, this is the way the feminine shows up and this is what she does. And then I put my whole family's military on top of that. That's a whole nother layer of how you're supposed to show up, right? And do I allow myself to say no to something that's a request that's coming in? Do I allow myself the ability to let somebody else say no to me? Right? Or do I start a big, huge story about what that no is and attach it to a wound and attach it to this? And so for me, self-care really starts with the concept of consent within ourselves. Do I give myself the permission to say yes, no, or maybe? Or have I taken that off the table because I have a role, a manager part of me, a persona that says you have to make people happy or they're going to hurt you. You have to be indispensable, a beautiful caretaker because other people really need you and you're good at it. So step up. Do I have an unworthy one who doesn't believe that my needs are as important as yours? Is there an insecure one who says, oh, what if I don't do it well enough? What if I get it wrong? These are all under that big archetypal pattern of the saboteur, right? What's the saboteur up to? Keeping us from stepping into our power, allowing that wise oneself to fuse with our soul self, fuse with us in this incarnation and then rock out who we are. Okay, sorry, I geeked out.
Well, also, and maybe you can address this too, because I didn't even know I had done this to myself. Because, you know, those of us too who were like good students or want to get it right or whatever, you know, once I found out I'd been given these invitations, and I did say yes finally, and I wanted to remember, and I was on the journey. Then, being who I am, the way my brain is wired, it was all about the journey, and I wanted to get it all, remember it all, understand it all, and right now, you know, and because God's my whole life, you know, being claircognizant, see everything, understand everything, know everything for everybody, then, you know, I want to go ahead and do it right now, so I could get to the understanding and be there. And it wasn't until yesterday that I was like, my head really hurt. Everything hurts. And wait a minute. Am I just, I feel like I'm just, you know, like I was doing in college, just hurrying on to the next thing. And am I getting so caught up in the trying to get all the answers and get to it that I'm all caught up in the doing of the being, because I was being love, and I was, so much was coming through, but it was question upon baby question upon insight, but so much, but not understanding it all. And it really felt like I wasn't able to just be only in the being, but I was in the doing of the being.
Yeah.
And I was like, what in the hell have I done now?
Yeah, well, and that's just a persona, right? It's one of these things that we're talking about. And if we get to the questions, I don't know what our time frame is, Jolinda, so you gotta rein me in, otherwise Spirit just keeps going.
5 after 1.
But
Questions so far.
okay. So, but if we have time to add in some little live readings, that's going to be the question, is like, what persona was grabbing hold of you that was keeping you from allowing this to truly embody? And that one is like the good student, right? If I'm the good student, then I have worth, then I have value. It's in essence a part of the unworthy one, which is like, you know, but it comes under the flavor of, if I'm the good student, for you anyways, is what I'm reading, that, and if I make sure I get this all right, and I can prove that I get it right, and I'm quick and I'm fast at it and I'm better than the other person, then all of a sudden I have worth and I have value and people will need me, right? But what's the opposite of that? The opposite of that is allowing it to start to drop in, allowing you to start to practice. Well, what's the fear there? Well, if I let it drop in, I might not be good enough. I might not be the good student, right? I might take longer to get there. So if I keep it all cognitive, all up here in the clairgnostics, and I cut off clairsentience, then I can't feel it, and I can't get bad at it, and then I'm okay. Ta-da! We're safe. Everybody in your team high fives each other. They go, we saved Dr. Tricia today. Everybody go home. You guys are great. Good job. You know, rinse and repeat tomorrow. And they keep you in the crazy making cycle versus in the stopping, embodying, and working with the parts of you, working with those downloads that are coming in. Because when you work with them, the way we learn is we have to what? Little baby learning how to walk. What's it have to do? It's going to fall. It's not going. And what do we do when the baby falls? We go, oh, it's okay. It's okay. You did so great. You got 3 steps, and we help them stand back up. What do we do when we fall?
Get up.
We're like, here's something. We're our worst critic to ourselves. We like hold ourselves to the standard that's unrealistic. We beat ourselves up. We berate ourselves. You know, like we need to go back and be the cheerleader that's, oh my gosh, you took 2 steps. You tried to let go of the top coffee table and see what that big download feels like. Because that's the other thing that I did for a while. So in my 20s, I did this massive spiritual bypass. Like once I got it and started opening up and like allowed the things to go out, I just blew myself out into the spiritual world. and I dragged my physical body around with me. I mean, like legit saw it as a meat suit. I was like, I don't know why I have this thing. It's pain. It's out of control. It's like, whatever. I don't want this to be any part of me. So I'm just gonna like cut it off. And I used mindfulness. I was a master at mindfulness teacher, right? But I totally cut it off. And so instead of embodying myself, all I did was disembody myself and be really good at it. So I went right back to the same essence that it was when I was paralyzed. Now I could just drag this meat suit around. I wasn't putting the two pieces together, right? I wasn't allowing that spiritual world to come into this form because it was scary and it was hard. And in essence, that's what the animals do too. I watch them all the time. They're completely dissociated. They're not, so many of them are not in their body. And, you know, like, why aren't they in their body? Because there's no place for them to be, depending on who they're with, right? Mm-hmm. I'm imagining your community is much more conscious and allows them to show up and be present, which, thank you. Good job, everybody. But now turn the temple on you. And just like for right now, just do a little scan. Take a breath. See how much do you feel present in your body? First choice, best choice. Don't edit it. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 is like, I am in here, running on full circuits. 1 is, I got a body. Oops, I didn't know that. Where are you on that scale?
5.
5? Feeling this a 5?
Y'all can answer too.
Write that down. When we go into the little repealing thing, we're going to see if we can't get that higher. The chances are, though, whatever number you have has a perfectly good reason it's that way. It's because right now your world does not support you.
Put it in the chat. Put it in the chat, y'all.
Oh, I'm not following chat, so somebody's got to tell me.
Yeah.
You want, my ADD will blow out. You don't want me to do that. I'm already following enough channels. But here's the other thing I want every single one of you guys to really hear. We don't do anything for shits and giggles. Okay? We don't. Everything that we do, these coping skills, these ways of being, they are exquisite, beautiful protectors and managers that we designed because we thought it was the best way to survive at any moment that they were made. And so shame and blame has no place in my world, right? If I held myself with shame and blame, I'd still not get out of bed because I did a lot of stupid crap, you know? 60 out of 4. Okay, that's pretty good, Susan.
Ooh,
Ooh,
yeah.
an 8? Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Go for it. Love that.
That's
Okay.
great.
So the first thing to do, yeah, Bobby, what is that? I like that question. Is to really work on fusing these worlds together. So I did really good with the mental body. That's what all the therapy world that I went into, starting equine partner psychotherapy, doing all of this stuff, starting the business and Unbridled Change, is I was really good with the body. I was really good with the mind, and the soul I kind of talked to, but I skirted around. And then finally, right at the end of my 30s, my soul came a knocking, and it said, Michelle, I was sitting in a meditation. It said, Michelle, look at your spirit body. What's it look like? And I was like, what? I don't need to look at that. But I did. I looked at it. When I looked at it, it looked like a tattered sail. Like it looked like a boat that was coming in after a war, right? Like that's how that physical representation, the sails were all tattered. It was all beat up. There were like cannon holes in the side of it. I mean, it was a hot mess. I was like, whoa, that soul's looking a little tired. You know,
we've had a request that you repeat the question about the scale from 1 to 10.
Oh, scale 1 to 10, 10 being like, I feel really embodied, able to be present in the moment and able to like resource within self. How much soul is in the body. One is, I have a body. What is that? I don't know. So that's that little, yeah. So I didn't listen to that. I said, oh, look at that. That's nice. And I kind of like swiped it off to the side, and I kept going because like my life was on track. Unbridled Change was doing well. I had my family and my girls. I was launching a training program. Everything was going great. I was like, self-care, got it. 2 months later, diagnosed with stage 4 neuroendocrine stroma cancer. My soul tried to give me a heads up, and I said, no. So the only thing that my body knows can get me to pay attention to is if something is wrong with one of my animals, I stop and I pay attention. Like what you were saying, that focus and that awareness, or with me, but it was me that I had to pay attention to because I have 2 small girls and a business and 13 beings that rely on me, that I'm their steward for. So I finally said, okay, body, let's dive in. And I dove a deep, deep dive into finally being willing to bring 100% of that body, mind, soul together and completely infusing it. The horses once again became my messengers in that way. Spent pretty much every day in the pasture with them, helping, as they held the space for me to see these pieces of me that I still had no desire to be in. So, and the type of cancer that I had, none in the medical Western world would work. So it was all going over from this way of really putting together an amazing healing team that helped support me and work with me while I did the deep dive into the spiritual work that was behind that dissociation in my body and causing my physical body to dissociate within itself and divide itself and manifest through cancer.
Amazing.
So yeah.
Do you want to go ahead and do that process?
Sure. Do we have? Yeah.
Do you have a little time till we run over by chance, or are you locked in?
What time is it? I got a little bit of time. I've got clients coming to the arena at 4, so my time.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and do the process, and we'll try to get as many questions as we can. And
yeah. So if you guys want, are you still there?
yeah, we're here.
My whole screen just went black when I tried to check.
We're here. We're here.
So backing away. I went to go somewhat close to my computer, but I'm gonna back away. I'm not gonna touch it. I'm not gonna blow it up. Yeah. So if you want, there's 2 choices. You guys can decide which way feels best for you. I want to be honor all of your guys' time. You can either hop on, raise your hand, or put it in the queue box, and I can do a little mini reading for you. And you can ask me, like, what is the first thing that's kind of, I don't like to say the top block or the whatever because it's always changing, but what's up for you right now that's keeping you from being able to say yes to yourself and take that first step towards, or the next step in wholeness. And then I can do a little mini reading, tune in if you give me permission to check into what's kind of coming through the airwaves of that persona, maybe when it was at what its number 1 emotional block is. And then you can bring that into the group meditation and healing if you want. Or we can just drop into the group meditation and healing. I'm totally open to whatever feels best for you guys. What's best supportive?
Why don't you ask Spirit what would be better, and then we'll go that way.
I can feel the questions, so I think that's where if people have them, I don't mind at all. We can hop on there. We'll go real quick, so that we can have a good journey.
Okay, but listen, guys, seriously, no background information. Simply put the question 1 sentence, exactly like she said, so that she can give you the answer, okay? No background.
We have a hand up. Susan Anderson has her hand up.
Okay,
Hey.
unmute yourself, please.
Susan, unmute yourself and then you can ask your question or type it in the chat.
Hello, finally. Sorry, I'm a little slow here.
Hi, Susan.
Hello, Michelle. I'm so glad I could be here live. This has been so helpful, Michelle and Karen. Is it Karen?
Trisha.
Trisha, I'm sorry. Brain fog. Michelle, you said something about what you were indicating we might want to ask. Sounds exactly like what I need to ask. Like, what is my next best step to figuring out how I get better? You know, what's the
Absolutely. All right, so give me a second. Let me tune in, just kind of pulling up your team. So what I'm feeling right off the bat is that kind of archetypal pattern of that self-saboteur, right? The one that kind of comes in there, you get going, you get some wheels movement, you get some momentum, and then it comes in and like takes you out. Like I see your knees just buckling underneath you, and taking that out. So when I ask what's behind that, what's the trapped emotion in there, it feels almost like a panic. Like everything in my body starts to get like really tight, it starts to get panicky. And then the question is, what if? And it's like running like a freight train in my head. So that little persona that wants to try to slow you down and gum you up by getting you not to take that next step because it plays the what if game. Well, if I take this step, what will I feel like? What will that look like? What will that turn into? What will this, what? So we got to ask that piece to calm down, give you a chance to try, right? Yeah. And then come back around and do the reassessment. It's trying to pop you in front of an action step. So when was that created? The feels inherited from the father's side. So you would just kind of track it from that. And when we go into the group session. Does that work?
Yes.
Michelle, we have Ray who has a question.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Susan. Good to see you again. All right. Jolinda.
Ray.
Hi.
That's a question. She's unmuted herself.
Okay. Hi, Michelle, and hi, Dr. Tricia. It's lovely to be here. This is fantastic that you're doing this, and your talk is fascinating. Amazing. Okay, so do I not say anything about the condition?
Ask your question.
Yeah, you can just ask.
Well, the question is kind of like, what is behind the thing? So that's why I don't know whether to ask it. What do I don't understand how I ask this question, because
can you give me your question in one quick sentence?
Yeah, like there's little very small carcinoma on my nose, so that's what I wanted to ask the question about, because I went to a place and they wanted to just whip it off, and I decided no, I'm not going to go down that, because it's got nothing holistic about it. So I want to know why this is there, and what is it I'm doing to why is it there? Is this okay as a question?
I'm going to redirect it a little bit, because I don't want to step into like the medical advice world, and you're not a client, so I don't know all the background and all the information about what it is. But I do know that when we start to circle the wagons and say no to things, the number one thing that I do is I ask myself, what are the fears that are present? What are the fears that are present with either going forward with the advice that's coming from the medical community? What are my fears that are present from keeping me from moving forward into? And any time that you have something that's going haywire in the body, you know that something in the body has lost its purpose. It's lost its way of being, its connection to its divine blueprint, right? So I would check in with that fear one. What's blocking you from getting clear, conscious, beautiful, self-guided information, right? So that you can feel like, okay, no, this is what I need. Because that's the energy that I had to bring into my healing journey, that last one with cancer, there's so much holistic information and I needed to have a clear channel so I knew exactly what I needed to bring forward, right? Because if I went on all the goose chases, I'd be doing 20 million different things, and I want to get to what my body actually needed. So the self-care piece of what's the next step for you is to take on that fear one. And the fear one feels a little bit like the easygoing one. It's tired of saying I can be easygoing. It's like your body is giving you something that says, no, I'm not going to just conform and do what people want and be the one that's just kind of like, oh, I don't need anything. It's all good. It's like, your body's calling you to come forward and say, no, I have needs. I have wants. I have desires. And you're not going to be able to ignore that. Does that make sense? Is that tracking?
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much the thing about what, because I am going to see a homeopath, and, you know, it's like I have decided on a course of action. It's more like I was wondering whether you could feel into, you know, like what's behind this. I don't know.
I think it's that. It's that your body's ability has gotten stuck in this persona of this easygoing, my needs go to the back burner, this, that, and the other. What's behind the body coming this far forward with like, you can't ignore me now. It's making you put it on the front burner. It's making you answer those questions of what's going to keep you balanced. And so the number one, like, kind of trapped emotion that I feel right now would really unlock that clarity and that sense of being able to be grounded while you go through that, is really going to be looking at some anger and some bitterness on the inside of not being able to have that voice. If you can help knock that down, then you'll have clarity, grounding as you move forward through this next journey, and be really able to be in the listening about what's coming forward. Okay.
Yes.
So bring that into the group healing.
All right. Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I'm monitoring the chat and I don't see other questions. So I'll ask, you know, what is my greatest block?
Thank you, Ray.
All right, Miss Yolanda. Yours is so cute. It came forward very cute, and it was like, it had a little notebook and it had a little pen, and it was like, it started off like a taskmaster, but then it like smacked my hand with like a ruler. I was like, okay.
Teacher and me.
It was a teacher.
I was like, what am I? So it's that taskmaster, almost to the point of a drill sergeant energy in you. It's like, here's the list, it's got to get done, and you're on that list, but it doesn't let you be on that list, right? It keeps you moving. It doesn't let you settle in and kind of take that breath so you can feel and really absorb what's happening. So we got to invite this taskmaster to kind of, she's great in business world, but in like the self-care world, we want more of like that good accountability coach. Does that make sense?
Oh,
Gotta
makes
shift.
a lot of sense.
We got to shift her gears.
Kim has a question. Kim, you want to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Hi, thank you for
Thank
this.
you.
It's very, very helpful. What's holding me back from opening up my intuition more? Animal communication, healing.
Yeah. So Kim, what I heard and what I saw really was right away is some big earmuffs over your ears. And so it's like the messages are coming through, you're getting them, but they're garbled. They're not as clear, they're not as fast as they definitely can be. And that's also then cutting you off from being able to hear clearly what it is for you, for your highest, to light up that light within you, right? When I ask what's behind the earmuffs, like what's their job, what's their role, because again, I don't believe we do anything just for giggles. It doesn't feel like just a recalibration thing. It feels more of like a resistance to pick up that clarity, because with that clarity is going to come what it feels is more responsibility, more caretaking, more having to be tending to whatever that guidance is and that intuition that comes through. And that feels really overwhelming to your system. It believes it's going to take you into this peace, this this caretaker, the shadow caretaker, believes it's going to take you farther into doing for others versus doing for yourself. So we got to answer that and tell it no, right? Like, okay, who does your intuition belong to? Whose is it? It's yours, right?
Yeah.
And so answering that question that says, okay, I'm bringing on these pathways, not so I can get more overwhelmed with a bigger to-do list and a bigger caretaker list and a bigger responsibility list. I'm bringing these pathways on so that I can pare that list down, so I can get really clear on how I can hear and be present for self and for others. All right.
Mm-hmm.
This one feels like it's inherited into you from that mother, that line. It feels very feminine, that shoulds. And so I would invite you to track that when we drop into the healing session. Does that answer that question? Does that feel?
Yeah, thank you very much. Very helpful.
Susan Bowman has her hand raised. Susan, if you'll unmute yourself and you can ask your question.
Hey there.
Hi, Miss Susie.
Hi, good to see you.
Nice to see you.
I have a question here. It's like two phase. How long can I do this? And what direction should I go next?
How long can you do your caretaker role? Is that what you're asking me?
Yeah.
You know the answer to that one.
Just treading water here.
Yeah. So I think it's in inviting in the small moments. Inviting the small moments in is going to be your key to keep you from feeling like you're going under. Because right now, if I look at you energetically, you're barely popping your nose above water and back down. And then it's going like this. And so that means we really got to bring in some moments where you can get a little eddy, get some sand underneath your feet, take a bigger breath, and kind of have some highlights, right?
I just enrolled hospice this last week.
Okay. That's huge. That's huge. That is huge. I want to do massive, your whole team is doing massive high fives for you.
And
Right.
hey, Susan, are you part of any support groups, you know?
No, not at this time. Huh?
Well, let me tell you, because of my brief experience,
Happy birthday.
please join that, because I was fixing to, and I did finally get my dad, because my mom had Parkinson's and Lewy body dementia. It helped him immensely. And please join us too. We're here for you. But support groups, they've had such experience with everything, and they're just there. I found out, as much as I will give and do and the best thing in the world for the animals, and I can give, but I'm not a human caregiver at heart. I don't have the compassionate skills that I do for the animals, okay? And so caregive for yourself and be able to find people who understand, all right? But we are here for you too, okay? But do that for yourself, please. It will make all the difference in the world.
Okay.
That you're not alone, okay?
Yeah, I know I'm not alone, and I have, I have a wonderful family, and I have a good support group of friends. I'm not going to.
She needs more work hands.
Yeah.
But
Needs the work hands, the ability to then let her take those little moments. So use hospice to give you the permission to take those moments. Let them help you. Let the people actually, and then that's going to be your job. Spirit's talking to me really clear. When that helping hands are present, your job is to fill up you. If you stay present and you stay trying to hover and make sure they're happy and they're helpful, that's not the recharge that you need, right?
All right.
So that's your goal, is to actually give yourself permission to take the helping hands, not just to help physical, but to help you to be able to fill back up spiritual. Go do a walk, go sit, pray, draw, paint, do something. Right?
Okay, we'll do it.
All right.
Thank you.
I'm going to check on you and make sure.
Michelle, there's a question from Brigitte, and I'm sorry if I'm murdering your name. What do I need to focus on currently to help unblock the clarity to understanding and hearing my guidance?
Oh, mute yourself, Susan. Thank you.
Surprised on this one, Miss Brigitta, is it's really coming in like an insecure one. It's coming in one that's like a little shy, a little wavering, a little bit doubting, like a doubtful one. And I was surprised to see that persona come forward for you. And when I asked when was that created, about 8 years old. And it feels like it's in the vein of my perceptions don't match what I'm being told other people's perceptions are. So it's like questions then that intuitive sense, what you were feeling out into the world wasn't matching what you were getting validation from other people's mouths and what they were sensing in the world. And so there's a disconnect in there. And now that you're really turning on these channels and saying, no, this is my reality, this is true, there's just an echo that's left over in there that says, oh, but is it really true? Because everybody else sees it this way, I see it this way, so maybe this isn't true. And then it gets it to calm down and go away. And then that puts, like, in essence, like what Kim had, those earmuffs on you, where you can't get that clarity that fast because there's a little doubtful one in the back corner. All right. Okay. Anybody else before we dive in?
Anybody else? If you don't know how to raise your hand, you'll put it in the chat and I'll ask it for you.
Yep.
Going once, going twice.
Oh, all right. Here's Renee. What's holding me back from making a choice? Renee.
All right. A need for control came forward really strong on that one, Miss Renee. And when I asked where that need for control is kind of coming from, there is, if I make this choice, how will this change my world? So, and ultimately underneath it is a fear of like shifting and changing, potential abandonment. That feels like a really strong word, but that's the word that's coming through. And a desire to ultimately make sure everybody stays all in a good spot and your world stays the same.
I love it.
Does that match?
Yeah, it does. It really does. I love it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, I have a second question from somebody, but I want to make sure anybody that wants to ask a first question, if you've had a chance.
Well, let's try to not go into two questions just because, okay, you know, that wouldn't then really be fair. So,
okay. All right. Last call. Anybody got a question that hasn't had a chance to ask one? Put it in the chat. Okay, Maria, I feel suffocated. I feel like I'm currently disappointing everyone. I didn't get a question in there.
Do I have permission to read for you, Maria? You got to give me permission.
Do you have permission, Maria? Does she have permission to read for you? Yes. I know it's not a question. She said yes.
Okay. We're going to assume that that's the symptom of not being able to do the self-care and ask for yourself, right? Like, so, okay. I see a yes. Okay.
Yeah, she's nodding.
Yeah, this is coming in again as that flavor of almost that insecure one, but almost as an invisible one. Like that was your shielding. That was your protection. If I become completely invisible, then I can't get taken out and people will just pass me by without kind of coming at me. And so part of then that is when you are invisible, yeah, you get to not be on people's radar screen, but then people get to give you information of how they want you to show up. And it becomes really enclosing and that suffocating thing that you're talking about. So step one, make some room. And that's what your job is in that healing session, is to make room for you to start to bring you back out, so that you go from being invisible to being able to see yourself. And as you can see yourself, then the natural next step is that you'll be able to ask others to see your needs too. But right now, they don't even have that on their radar screen because you've taken it out from an inside point of view. And this one, I feel like you kind of maybe came into this incarnation with this on board, this kind of tendency to want to go 2D. And so this one's definitely feeling more like a soul journey for you, of learning to embody yourself, of learning to claim that soul light that you are, and not just be the hollow shell for other people to move and do and get you to be their invisible hands. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's what we're going to do in the healing. We're going to start to open up that door. Okay.
Okay, is there anybody else that has a question or a statement that you'd like Maria to read for you?
Rhonda, you okay with everything? You don't want to ask anything?
I'll catch Rhonda. But if she wants a question, I'll ask. Hey, ma'am.
Is there a block coming forward today that would help me to look at? Would be helpful to look at?
Yeah, I think it's that lovely little easygoing one of that my needs can go to the background. I want to make sure everybody else's needs are tended to and met. I have access to Michelle other places. I don't have to do it here. I love that Dr. Trisha called you out on that. But yeah, it's allowing your needs to be your needs, right? I honor that, and I'm grateful that you were willing to let some other people, but also show up for you. So that's a great one for you to work on, especially as we move into group work. Got it. Oh, I like that we found that one this week. That makes me happy. Yay, Rhonda.
Is there anyone else that would like to ask a question?
All right.
I'm not getting any.
All right. Well, then let's take a moment. If there's nothing else, Miss Trisha, does it feel good to drop into a healing journey?
Yep. Yes, ma'am.
All right. So once again, finding that breath. Let that breath be your avenue. What I love to do at first is not change it. Let it give you some information. Just notice what the breath is doing. Is it all up in the top part of your chest? Is it able to come down into the abdomen? Before you change it, invite it to start to give you some information. What is the breath doing? And the next step is to invite that breath to start to support you to create this healing channel. So now maybe invite it to get a little bit longer with the exhale. And then just notice that the inhale comes in effortlessly on its own. That beautiful exhale again. And with each breath in, what we're doing is creating a bigger and bigger, beautiful crystalline orb that's going to surround your whole aura, your whole body being. And each one of you, we're activating this crystalline orb with your divine essence, with the healing frequency that is optimal for you. And we are trusting that wise one self and wise one healer within you to help guide this. Just notice that there is that column of energy that comes from above your head, down through the crown, behind the eyes, in front of the spine. Continues down through the throat, the high heart. And I love to pause in the heart center and just witness and feel that divine essence that is you. Maybe even touch the heart center. Whether it's a new relationship that is like a little baby seedling, or whether this is a big, beautiful tree within you that you're strengthening the roots and helping it grow and reach higher. We're welcoming a divine essence of you. When it feels good, I invite you to continue down through that column of energy. Notice that it flows through the solar plexus, that abdomen area, down through the lower abdomen and the sacral, that sacred womb, down through the root, relaxing your body to let the surface that you are on to hold you, down through the legs, all the way down. Find your feet, wiggle your toes, find the bottom of your feet. And then allow that energy to continue down through the Earth Star chakra below your feet. And it continues down to Gaia. Notice that Gaia is holding the other end of that grounding cord. You are held, you are supported, and you are nourished. From above and below, both are present, supporting you at this time. And if it feels good and safe, I invite you to welcome that beautiful yin energy, that nourishment, to come up through the grounding cord, through the Earth Star chakra, up through the feet, through that K1 point at the bottom of the feet, the bubbling well, that reservoir that feeds the rest of your soul as it comes up through the feet, through the legs, up through the knees, thighs, through the root chakra. Just allow that nourishing energy to be perfect and optimal just for you. Up through the womb, the abdomen, and once again pausing in that high heart. Notice how the divine energy and the yin energy circle and swirl with your essence of who you are, of who you be. Continuing, allowing that energy to flow up through the throat, behind the eyes, out the top of the crown as it cascades in a beautiful waterfall throughout your whole aura. The sides, the back, to the front. Once again, weaving with that crystalline orb to help create nourishment and support for you on this journey. Bringing your attention back to that heart space of yours. Just imagine that there is a gateway there that you can open. It's a gateway into that sacred place, that soul light. You can almost imagine stepping over that threshold into a beautiful sacred meadow of your heart. And there we're going to ask for a representation of your wise one self to come forward. A representation of that inner healer within you. And we're going to ask for them to help bring forward this piece of you that has been fragmented and lost and cut off. This piece that feels unworthy or fearful. Bringing it forward to tend to it, to love it, to say, I see you. You are no longer alone. You are not lost. And we know that you were doing the best that you could when this piece was created. And let's take a moment and really honor this piece. Because without it, whatever it was created for, you would not have survived the way you did. And so we can honor it and say, thank you. Thank you for keeping you safe. Thank you for helping to protect you. And then just as you attend ever so effortlessly to one of your beautiful animal companions or beings, Invite this piece to feel that same love. Wipe away its tears. Sit down in the grass in the meadow with it. And say, I see you, I hear you, and I love you. And then ask it, is it willing to come and support you in a new way, in a way that allows you to have access to your soul's light and your fullness? Is it willing to come alongside of you and help you find a way to put you back into you? To allow you to start to have that true consent within yourself? Can it become an amazing coach, a sage, a teacher, a guide? Is it there to help you hold accountability to realizing and recognizing your light? And in a way of nurturing and kindness and love. And watch as this piece starts to transform fast into love of you. Maybe it starts to stand up a little straighter. Maybe it's completely transforming and transmuting itself into a whole new figure in front of you. Watch it as it begins to infuse itself with courage, with willingness, with understanding and knowing your beautiful divine worth. That it honors you. And it helps you bring that honor to every relationship you have. It helps you start to reestablish healthy boundaries. And shifting from a sense of lack of control to now it's shifting to a sense of how can it co-create? What choices can it bring forward? And then feel the willingness that it has to let you explore, be curious, and to try on new things. And if they don't work, it's no big deal. You just try something different. Feel the wonder and excitement that is within this piece now. Yeah. And I'm just going to give you a moment to listen, sense, see, feel, hear, know any messages that might be coming from your wiseman self or healer, or this part of you now that is going to agree to take this beautiful space as a loving coach and a guide and a teacher as you move forward into expanding and strengthening this journey of self. Evolving the pieces of you back into wholeness. When it feels good to you, I offer you to give a little bow to this piece that came forward, thanking your wise one self and healer. Sensing and seeing that beautiful love coming between you and them and stepping back over that threshold, back into that body. And what I'm going to ask your body to do now is to allow healing strands of grace to start to go wherever it's needed in your physical form to help lay the pathways for what we've done in the energetics, in the quantum field to come present to support you as this continues to integrate within your full body being over whatever time frame is optimal for you. Let your body know that the healing work is done, it is complete, and the body can allow grace and ease in the integration. Let it take a big breath in, out with sound. Again, take up all that space in your real estate stretch. Feel that full body being. Coming into balance. Honoring and thanking the self for showing up today, for putting yourself on the to-do list, or whenever you're listening to this replay. Ah, there we go again. Hey, welcome back from our little quick journey.
That was pretty cool. Maybe we can figure out a way to pull that piece out. That's pretty amazing. I don't know how to edit yet, but that was pretty amazing.
That's not my job. I don't know how to do that.
Nobody I know knows how to do tech, and I'm really trying to learn, but that's pretty amazing. If I figure it out, not if, when I figure that out, I'll make sure you have a copy of it.
Yeah, and so if this is helpful, I also do a free monthly membership community, Connecting with Joy. It's a podcast that I do that you can sign up for. It's free every month, or there's a paid membership level as well, where you can get access to all the seasons and a crazy like year-long coaching program and transformation through the archetypal houses and a bunch of other random stuff that I put in there in that version. But the free one, I do this every month. I bring in a guest, and then we do have a monthly coaching call on the paid one where we do this, where I answer questions and we do a healing session as well. But you can check all that out. But if that would be helpful. And I think, Delinda, I gave you guys a wag bag gift that drops you even further into the stuff I didn't slow down. It asks even more questions, plus guided meditations are in there as well to really go the next step of that consent, of what is consent in your body for self and for others. So that's also in there too.
Yeah, I think y'all will just love it. So now y'all see why she's one of my favorite animal people of all time, and just one of my favorites, you know. So now I have a question that I just want to see if you can tell me what this meant. We're talking about earlier. I was at my doctor's yesterday waiting for an x-ray, and the door was shut, and I heard clearly with these ears, Michelle, a lady's voice, "Dr. Working, we're ready for you now." So I opened the door, walked out there, and I said, "Okay, you know, yeah, y'all ready? You want me?" And, you know, he looked up at me and said, "No, get back in there." So, you know, I walked back in, and then, you know, another 5 or 6 minutes later, you know, the nurse did come and get me. What happened? What did that mean? Because I don't want to prejudice you with what I think, but tell me truly what happened.
Well, you know the way that I work, Dr. Tricia. I believe in self-revelation. So I'm going to guide you through that for you. But if you've already done that step, then I can circle back around. You've already done that step, right?
Yeah, no, I know what I feel happened. So
Okay.
tell me what they're telling you so that if I can get validation or
Yeah, so the validation, it is that you're being called to that next level, that next deeper level of work. It's like, Dr. Trishing, hello, we're ready for you now. Please step into that next level of self. And that next level of self, you know, comes on that beautiful silver platter with that embossed invitation that when you open it up, it looks all nice and pretty. But I think it had to come in so audibly so that you would actually say yes, because you now know that saying yes to that means cue transformational journey roller coaster. And it's time. It's no more sitting in the eddy. It's time to get out of the eddy, you know, and it feels like you just got in the eddy, but you know, that's what I hear pretty much coming through loud and clear. But they're saying you can do it. They're excited.
Yeah, because I mean, and there have been a few times definitely, and I've been asking, of course, for the, you know, the hearing, but I absolutely so clearly heard it, you know. So, and I also was told last night that the veil has been lifted. So,
I'm excited to see where it goes. Everybody, I'm excited for everybody to see where everyone's next step in their journey of like reconnecting with that beautiful soul light that I could feel, and I was watching as we were going through that, and like you guys are all little orbs in front of me, and some orbs that are obviously going to do some replays, but it was so amazing and beautiful to watch that everyone's brighter. Like ask yourself that same question again on the scale of 1 to 10. 10 is I'm in my body. And I feel like I can activate that soul light within. 1 is I got a body. What is that? Do that little scan right now. How's it feel?
Well, I'm just looking at their pictures right now, and their auras are brighter. You know, their smiles are softer. I mean, I can see it on every face right now. Everybody looks lighter, you know. So, and there was so much seriousness before just taking the information in. So I can see, I'm getting chills saying that, you know. So Michelle, this has been, we'll definitely have to do it again, but this was so absolutely fabulous. I cannot thank you enough. This truly was a Labor Day of love, perhaps the best Labor Day I've ever spent. Again, chills. So I want to thank you and your guides and all Orion and Biscuit and all your wonderful animals, because I could feel them also coming in on our behalfs. I really could, you know, so thank them for that and give them huge kisses and snuggles for me. This was just amazing. So want to let y'all know too, don't want to throw too much at you, but back to back, but because we had to reschedule Caitlin Dorsey because of my husband's mom's death, we will be having her tomorrow to finish up the August celebration series, and it will be on self-care and a journey to abundance and understanding it in all its forms at 12 noon too. So I invite y'all right back here, same time, same bat channel for all those of you old enough to remember Batman. And the replay will be there. Even if you can't make it, just sign up for it. And you're all welcome. Hope you can make it. But thank you so much for today. All of your energy was just amazing and wonderful. And I just truly hope you remember to just do your very best to find your yes, okay? Find your way to your yeses, and then you'll much easier be able to learn to find the ways to say your no's when it's necessary. So we'll try our best to figure out how to get this piece pulled out so you can use it over and over, but you'll have the recording soon, very soon, and then you can use it as much as necessary to help you pull yourself together and remember who you are and how most precious you are, and how very loved all of you are. So Michelle, hugs and kisses. Look at your note I just sent you. And
I don't know how to do that, but
okay.
Joanna will figure it out.
Hang on
if I touch it right now, I think it's gonna not be happy. So I'm not gonna touch my computer.
Don't leave yet. But thank y'all guys so very much. You've been such a joy today, and we'll see you tomorrow. And just take this all in and have a wonderful rest of your Labor Day today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you all.
Bye, y'all.
And light and love. Have a great one.
Thank y'all.